from a budget and a schedule standpoint, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up and putting into the bank. These are the things that we need to get the job done at our level of accuracy, our attention to detail. We want to be conservative with that, and then we'll bill against that. Welcome back to the NS Podcast. What's up, guys? So I want to talk about our management style and why we've kind of evolved over the last couple of years on how we manage our projects, specifically around the supervision of our projects. So, when we were smaller, when we were doing smaller projects, typically there would be someone in charge, whether it's a lead carpenter, whatever you want to call it, someone that was quote unquote running that job. Oftentimes it was me. And I was handling all of the communication and the accounting and so on and so forth. And as we have evolved to do bigger projects, and as we sit down with our clients, especially at the end of the job, and have this debrief, we found that one of the more common things that kept coming up was the communication could improve, or we didn't feel like we had your utmost attention, or, the job, seemed to be secondary to what the job that you were sharing on social media. And all of these things, my natural reaction is to defend them, but I chose to take a position of just listening to what they were saying and understand that these are real matters that we need to address. So in looking at how to improve that, how do we improve communication, them feeling as though that, that job is important to us, etc., it was to make sure that we had undivided attention and making sure, and this is only one part of it, I'm touching on this first, but, we wanted to make sure that the client was always in the loop. Communication was always happening, and also that we were always on site. We were always producing work. We were always in production mode. We were always making sure things were getting done. And one of the way, in some of the ways that we have decided to manage the job have come down to a structure much like commercial construction, where you have a project manager and a job superintendent. And that is exactly what we have shifted to. And I'm going to walk you through what that might look like, if you're thinking about working with us, and how that's, formatted for our job. So a job superintendent, their job is quality control. They are on site making sure that, we are moving forward, we're executing work at a really high level, that the quality is hit, that they should know every detail of the job. They're paying attention to the smallest details. They're understanding, what's coming next. They're ordering material. They're coordinating with subs. They are on site every single day. So they are billed to our jobs 100%. You're building a job with us or renovating a home with us, you get a dedicated site super on that project, and their job is to run that job from beginning all the way to end. And ideally, we're getting them involved in pre-construction meetings, understanding how this job is unfolding, because we have found that the most successful projects are ones that do have someone that is dedicated from the very beginning to the end, but even more so for individual success, for that PM, is that they are involved in some of the planning. And not all of it, but enough of it where they have a good understanding of, what that job looks like. And and I'm gonna tell you why, because for me, I would spend a year in pre-construction on this job, and I would know all the details. And I'm not going to run the job, but I'm going through it. I'm working on the contract. I'm understanding the details. I'm overseeing some of the meetings and so on and so forth. And then this thing gets handed off to a super, and they have to be brought up to speed. And I was forgetting that I've spent 12 months with these drawings. Of course, I know the details. And now this person has to not only understand the details, but also get into the job immediately. It's just not a good recipe. And, we found that they need to be involved as early as we possibly can. And of course, there's a cost to that, and that cost has to be, brought back to the client in some form or fashion. But, as our jobs are bigger, they really do call for full-time supervision, full-time job superintendent. That's a big reason why we've kind of shifted away from the smaller renovation projects, because our management structure doesn't entirely make sense. Now, I say smaller, but smaller is subjective. It's not necessarily a dollar amount. It typically revolves around a particular dollar amount, which is, roughly $1 million. But, we've certainly have and will do projects that are under that if they require the supervision that, we're set out to, approach our projects with. Now, listen, $1 million is a big job. It's a great job. And there's great jobs from $0 to $1 million. There's no doubt. And that's another big reason why we separated the Materia brand so we could handle a lot of the smaller millwork jobs. I'm not saying I'm too good for the smaller projects under $1 million or anything. What I'm saying is that our management model typically does not make sense. And I want our management model to work because that's who our team is, our management team. Now, also on top of that, I want projects to be really interesting. If they're wildly interesting and it's $250,000 and it can be super cool, hell yeah, I'm going to take that job. It makes sense. It's a good fit for us from a client standpoint. That's why I'm saying it's not revolving around money. It's revolving around the project and what kind of management it's going to require. Now, project manager. That project manager is going to oversee typically 2 projects. Maybe there might be a case where they're overseeing 3, but they are handling communication. They are communication and document control. That is their job. They are making sure that they're overseeing the daily logs being updated by the super. They are making sure that's getting done every day. They're updating the client weekly. That's usually in the form of a weekly meeting. They're running the meeting. They're doing meeting minutes. They're then making sure that those meeting minutes are dispersed to the team and make sure that, if there's a to-do list or an action item list that needs to be done, communicating it to the respective individual. They're also sending out a weekly recap at the end of the week, like, hey, I know you probably saw the daily logs, but here's what happened. Here's what we're, planning on working on next week. If there's any questions, please reach out. Also making sure that the budget is updated. All of the bills and POs and invoices that come in, they're getting them to our accounting team and making sure that that stuff gets implemented into our accounting, thus then connecting to Procore. We're going to save the Procore conversation for a future episode. I've been using Build a Trend for many years. We've recently switched to Procore. I'll talk about that at another time. But we're getting that into Procore and making sure that the job is accurate from a financial standpoint every single week. That is so wildly important. You've heard us talk about the missing receipt log, or you've heard me talk about it. We don't miss receipts. I get a report every Monday of anything that doesn't have a backup receipt or that was charged on a credit card or cashed as a check. And if we don't have the backup for it, the entire company knows, and no one wants to be on that list. Now, also the schedule. The super and the PM, and typically my director of operations are going to work together on that schedule, but it is the project manager's job to maintain that and to maintain the accuracy of it and communicate the accuracy of it and communicate if there's changes. Also handling change orders. Anything document control or related to that is the job of that PM. But they are going to be, their direct job costs. They are going to be billed to the job at what percentage they are spending their time. So if they're overseeing 3 jobs, 33.3% of their time is billed to this job. If they're overseeing 2, 50%. And let me back up. It's not even that they're being billed, but that's what we're budgeting. If we're budgeting for them to do 2 jobs, we're going to split that time 50-50 because that's where all of their time is going to be sunken, is in those 2 jobs. Now, there might be weeks where they spend more than 50% of their week. Okay, that week is a heavy build week for project manager. Some days might be light. That week is a light build project manager. We're billing the actual time, but we're billing against an allowance or basically a budgeted amount. And, our goal is to make sure that we're being conservative and we're not, because listen, I've been on the other side where I come in aggressive to win the job. It has never worked in our favor. Maybe in the clients, but never in our favor. And probably not the clients because the client ends up seeing us struggle at the end where we don't have the resources to finish the job strong, or we've run out of money or time or whatever the case is, where it's like we need, maybe I promised a shorter time frame than I knew I could do it in, right? from a budget and a schedule standpoint, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up and putting into the bank, this fictional bank of, budget and schedule of these are the things that we need to get the job done at our level of accuracy, our attention to detail. We want to be conservative with that, and then we'll bill against that. And ideally, we bill against that, and we ideally come under. If a job doesn't have any ads to it and it goes smooth, realistically, we should be under those numbers. That doesn't always happen, and probably more times than not, it doesn't happen, and scope changes or people add work, and our job is to communicate that, and that's back on the PM. So, beyond that, director of operations, he is overseeing all of the projects. So a very small percentage, usually 4 hours a week or something like that, is going to be billed to the job. But that is because they're actively on the job. They're working through, details with the site super as well as the PM. They're handling production meetings. They're making sure that the support from our office, our accounting team, myself, like all of that is giving them the support to make sure that job is as successful as possible. And then, of course, we have our project admin. Same thing. They're spending just a few hours a week, but they're the one, handling the filing, the invoicing, things like that. They're getting all this information, packaging it up, putting a bow on it, and sending it out to the client for accounts receivable. And they may be helping with some of the AP, accounts payable, if see fit, but primarily handling the administration tasks for the project. Again, to kind of wrap this up, this is a direct, response to what our previous clients have asked for. This is a direct response of, how we have, when we have been most successful as a builder. And for us, it's really important that we stick to that and we stick to the process in which works and puts us in the best position, because ultimately, I've said it forever, I do not want to build a mediocre team or a mediocre company, and for you as a client, a mediocre home. We are set out to build great homes, and really thoughtfully and intentionally designed, and we want to be the best that we possibly can. And in order for us to be the best that we can, we need the resources to be the best that we can. And that is why we have structured our business to grow this way, and that is why we manage our projects this way. And I will wrap this up with saying that two of our recent completed projects, after I sat down with them and talked about, what we could continue to do, both of them had said that continue to manage the projects this way, continue to have these people in place, because it allowed us to feel as though we were always heard and we always were in the loop. And when we had a question or a concern, it was addressed immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Reno Run. So Reno Run just announced that they are in another city, Washington, D.C. So if you guys are down there, check them out. If you guys want free delivery, it's on me, podcast.renorun/NS, as in Nick Schiffer. We've been using them for months, handling our last-minute deliveries, or if we need to run to a local hardware store, lumber store, or something like that, rather than us hopping in our truck and doing that and wasting 3 hours. Or getting on our phone and getting in touch with Reno Run, and they're handling it for us. And I know that they're doing everything from a box of screws to a flatbed loaded with lumber. Make sure you check them out. podcast.renorun.com/NS. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you next week.